This is our Wheel and Anchor webinar, Peru, Land of the Incas, that we're going to be taking next year in June 24th to the 5th of July of 2022. And I'm going to give a little preamble for those who have not attended one of our webinars before, what Wheel and Anchor is all about, the philosophy that I brought to this organization that we started just a few years ago, is all about bringing travelers together. I have been doing travel for the better part of 30 years, and have had the pleasure of meeting all kinds of wonderful people from across Canada. And what I realized in all those years of organizing travel is that when you have people that are part of something that know each other, whether it's well or loosely, but that have that similar view on what travel should be about, the meaning of it all, and we go and we have such a great time together. We have a lot of fun. And so that is what our mission is at Wheel and Anchor, is about bringing travelers together. And for me, for my goal for each of and every one of you is this idea of becoming well-traveled and well-connected. And well-traveled is about really having the time to experience, immerse oneself in a place, and really meeting local people and feeling like, a little bit like you're home away from home. Sometimes on quicker trips, it's hard to get that sense, but I'm certain in Peru, you'll really get a wonderful taste of it because the people are so friendly. It's such an amazing country. And along the way, you become well connected again to your fellow travelers, those people that you will meet on the trips. And I can say with a certain degree of pride that a lot of friendships have been spawned out of Wheel and Anchor trips. And so being well connected is really an important part of what we're all about. Good morning, Fran. Good morning, Bill and Sherry, everyone else that's joined us since we've just started. I'd like to introduce our team. Of course, I'm Gordon Dreger, the founder of Wheel and Anchor, whom most of you will know already. Joel and Paula are my colleagues in the background. And today, most importantly, I want to introduce Martine. She is down at the bottom of your screen. Welcome, Martine. It is wonderful to have you here. Martine is an expert on traveling in Peru. You've been there how many times? You were telling me earlier today you were there like 13 times back to back or something?
Yes, pretty much, yeah. Well, not necessarily back to back, but within a certain amount of years, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So
yes, Machu Picchu still astounds me. So hey, that's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the beauty of it, is when you can go and each time and still be in awe of the place. So Martine is going to do a lot of the talking today and tell us about the wonderful experiences that we're going to have along the way in Peru. Our agenda today is to take you, our members who are obviously interested in Machu Picchu, but Machu Picchu is a highlight, and it's one of those places that you get a chill down your spine when you see it for the first time. But there's so much more to Peru, and so I'm going to take you with Martine's help today on a little tour around the country of Peru, where we're headed in June of 2022. Let's talk a bit about the program. First of all, the country of Peru, which Peru is obviously well known. It's perhaps the most visited country in South America from a tourism standpoint. It's had relative stability over the past decades. Certainly, they've had political challenges, but it's been a quiet and a safe country. It's the size of Ontario, to give you a sense of the overall landmass, and yet there's like 33 million people there. So there's almost as many people as in the whole of Canada that live in an area that's only slightly larger than Ontario. But the interesting thing about Peru in particular is that it has three very distinct sort of geological features. I mean, one, you've got, as you can see in the map, a massive rainforest. I mean, the Amazon basin covers 2/3 of the country, or maybe even more. Then you have the Andes Mountains, which is obviously the chain of mountains that runs all the way from north to south in South America. And then beyond that, along the coast, you have some incredibly picturesque desert that melts right into the sea. And we get a taste of all of that, certainly for those who want to participate in our extension program, the last days into the Amazon rainforest. You'll get a real taste of all of that. So looking at our program in overview, we fly into Lima, of course, the capital, where we'll spend a night and then head down for a couple of days on the Atlantic coast down in a place called Paracas, which is in the region of Ica. And what's famous about this area is the Nazca lines, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll also see the Baestas Islands. Then we'll head back to Lima overland. It's quite a picturesque drive. We'll fly up to Cusco, which is high up. It's on a plateau up in the Andes. And then we'll head down into the Sacred Valley, then taking in Machu Picchu, and then back to Cusco for a couple of days. And then for those that wish, there's 3 days of adventure deep in the Amazon rainforest. Otherwise, we'll fly back to Lima and then head back home. Although I know some members have already said, what about going to the Galapagos Islands or other things? So we can certainly look at some extension programs beyond that for those that are interested. So Martine, it's about to be your turn now to give us some highlights about what we're going to see on our itinerary. You've already seen a few of the pictures here. The countryside is absolutely spectacular. I see one of our members saying Galapagos, yes. So yeah, we noted that interest already. And so although we don't have anything prepared for the Galapagos, I have definitely some information that I can pass along in due course for those that would like to do that. So let's start off. So we're going to fly into Lima. Yes. And just a quick note of logistics there before I let you talk about Lima and the city. At the moment, normally Air Canada is flying directly nonstop from Toronto into Lima with connections from across Canada. That service is currently suspended, but I am told it will be reinstated later this summer. So by next year, we should be able to avail of ourselves of that connection. Those coming from Western Canada, it's a little bit easier to fly via one of the US gateways to get to Lima. Either way, we'll get you there. And when you arrive, you will be welcomed by the wonderful Martine, who you can see at the bottom of the screen. And she's going to give you a bit of an orientation about Lima. We don't have a lot of days in Lima on this program. And so one thing that I would urge you to consider is flying in a day early, particularly if the flight connection would have you coming in late. It is a city that is truly worth visiting, if nothing else other than to eat, because the food is so fantastic. And
yes, let me talk about the food.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier today, and a lot of people don't associate. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to let Martine share a little bit about what makes Lima, this capital of Peru, such an amazing place.
Yeah, but I also invite you to jump in because Gordon's been there as well, so he can chime in on what's going on there. First, let me just say hi, everyone. I'll be your hostess with the mostest while we're in Peru. As Gordon explained, I have led several groups in this incredible country. It's actually one of my favorites, and I've traveled all of the Americas, also Europe and other places, but of the Americas, it's actually, I would say, my top 3 of all countries. It's quite special in my heart. So I'm excited to show you if you do join me. So Lima, when you do arrive there, you're going to have lots to do there. We're actually going to not stay in Lima proper. We're going to stay in Miraflores, which is a suburb that is right by the ocean. So it's where the ocean really meets the dry, arid sort of city, which is one of very little capital cities that are considered in the desert. So it's really interesting. This city actually is known for some of their best food. In fact, there's 3 of the Michelin star restaurants, 2 of which Central and Maido, which I fully recommend. You must reserve with anticipation. We can talk about that if you are interested in doing that. But if just going around, just so you know, this is definitely a foodie's trip. If you're someone who loves food, you're going on an incredible journey here with me. So when you are in Lima / Miraflores, there's lots to do if you do come early. One of which is the Larco Museum, which I fully recommend. It's a private collection of pre-Inca, pieces. It's just remarkable if you are into more history. Also, you can do a city tour on a bus, and just the city itself of Miraflores is very flourishing. flourishing. Next to it is Barranco, which is sort of like hippie. It's really fun. So if you want to come in earlier, definitely do that. But we won't stay much time as part of our itinerary. When you arrive, depending on what time you arrive, you may have room to do different things, but we'll definitely start with our welcome dinner together in one of my favorite restaurants, Sacra. So if you love everything from seafood, we're right by the ocean. This is the time to eat seafood, everyone. So, but we'll have opportunities along the first couple of days because we are staying by the ocean. So let's move on from Lima.
There's always something for those who don't eat. There's always something for those who don't eat seafood. So just don't worry about that. If you're vegetarian, we can look after any dietary requirement. And the good thing is that in Peru, the vegetables are so delicious as well, as my recollection. I mean, it's
do you remember
they do amazing things.
Do you remember palta? You know what
I
that
do,
is?
yes.
Avocado, which is the size of your head.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing stuff.
That's incredible.
Amazing stuff.
That's
so
right.
After our first night, we're going to head right down the coast. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. Sorry, I'll let Gordon say that where we're going, and then I'll tell you what we're doing there.
Exactly. So we're going to head down the coast, overland, and we'll pass, as Martine was saying, we get right into the desert. And it's really quite, you see some amazing things along the way. And we'll be between the desert and the ocean as we take the Pan American Highway down south towards Paracas. And we'll get there already by lunch. And this is a lovely hotel. In fact, the last trip I made to Peru, we stayed in the same place. And I was so delighted when Martine suggested that we stay in the same place, the Bahia Hacienda. It's a lovely hotel right on the ocean. And we'll be there for a couple of nights. And for those who've never done Pisco before, please, Martine, tell us about Pisco.
Oh, Pisco is one of my favorites. Maybe I drank too much of it, though, I have to admit. But Pisco is basically a grape. You're going to learn about the process of it. We actually may be offering an optional tour for those who actually want to go to a Pisco farm and see the process, the elaboration of how it gets from grape to the liquor. And basically, Pisco is really, there's a debate between Chile and Peru, right? There's kind of a fight between them two. Who invented this? But I think Peru wins. And we're actually going to be right by Pisco, which is the town of Pisco, and Paracas, which is a fishing village. We're very, very close. And Pisco, really, the Pisco sour is the national drink you will be partaking in if you are interested. Otherwise, I will make you something different, like a Chilcano, for example, which is a little bit different. And so this is really going to be interesting because we'll do a little tasting, even if we don't do the actual tour, if you don't decide to do the tour, that day before dinner, we're going to do some cocktails. And again, if someone doesn't drink, we'll have alternatives for you, not to worry. But the Pisco is definitely something you want to try when you're there. It's really good.
And I tell you, you will get addicted to it.
Yeah, especially when we're going to altitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important.
Yeah.
So we'll spend a night, and then the next day in the morning, for those that wish, we will do an overflight of the very famous Nazca lines. And we put this as an optional for good reason. And Martine will tell us a little bit about it. If you don't know about Martine, why don't you explain what are the Nazca lines and why might you want to go, and why might you not want to go?
Yes, exactly. So these are geoglyphs that are etched in the ground. Some of them are 30 meters wide and 9 kilometers long in terms of lines. These are incredible, and they're best seen, of course, from the air. You can drive up to it, but it's not going to have that same impression. I believe there's about at least 13 of them, and they date back. I mean, we'll let the guides get into the details of how they date back and what the perhaps meaning of them are. However, it's definitely something that's worth seeing if you are adventurous and you're not scared of small flights. So it's a small plane. It does take about 45 minutes to get to the actual site of when you're going to start seeing them. It lasts about half an hour over the lines and then comes back another 45 minutes. So as long as you're comfortable with flying, don't eat a very heavy breakfast. It's really worth it, and so we've kept it as an optional because we know not everyone wants to do this. And I've stayed at this hotel that Gordon was telling you many times, and it's so gorgeous. So if you want to stay back, you can have so many things to do. In fact, there's a private museum within the hotel itself that you can go visit, as well, of course, the ocean, the pool. Not that you'll be using the pool necessarily, because at that time of year, we're going in the winter of Peru, pardon me, where it can get cooler weather. So you may not, but if you're one that likes cool water and you want to, swim in the pool, it's all yours.
Yeah,
So, but yeah,
I found the pool nice. And I just want to mention just quickly,
oh, you're cutting out a bit.
the flight is rough and you have anti-nausea meds. It's not for everybody. That's for sure. But if you are adventurous, it is quite the sight to see. In the afternoon, for those that don't come, we'll relax around the pool. It's really a beautiful spot. We'll visit this national reserve, and you can you get a sense of this glorious, wide open expanse. What are we going to see in the reserve?
Yeah, so basically the Paracas National Reserve is about 3,350,000 square kilometers. It's huge. And 65% of that actually protects the ocean. So the ocean has different islands, and it has of course, incredible sea life, from Humboldt penguins, different kind of birds like the boobies, the cormorants, so many different sea lions, like dolphins. I mean, I was there many times, and a few times I saw pods of dolphins going by. It's quite spectacular. But what's spectacular about Paracas is like being on the moon. Like seriously, when you get into this park, it's a different world altogether. It's incredibly gorgeous. All these, like as you see here, the coastline, the different colors in the sand, all of that. So for those of you who are photographers, definitely you're going to find a lot of beautiful things to photograph here. And we're going to be doing a seafood lunch. Again, there's other options there for those who don't eat seafood. And I'm going to recommend the parihuela, which is my favorite soup. It's a seafood soup, very, very like huge amount of seafood in it. And you're going to really enjoy that. So it's really just a great place to go and discover also about the Paracas people and also the Nazca people. And so if you are into history, our guides are going to bring us through this journey and explain to us sort of the different various cultures that live there.
Yeah, fantastic. All in all, an amazing day. After our second night in Paracas, in the morning, we'll head out to the Baestas Islands. Again, a very cool trip, because these islands themselves are super picturesque. Cliffs that rise right out of the sea. We'll also see the Candelabra, which looks like a Nazca line. It actually isn't, but it's nonetheless spectacular, because it's a huge carving in a desert, in a dune on top of a mountain that you can only see from the sea. And yeah, the Baestas is really like a mini Galapagos.
Yeah, that's what they call it. They call it the mini Galapagos of Peru. We're not getting off the boats here. We're going to circumvent the islands, and we're going to be seeing things like, I mean, what I'm hoping that you will see are the Humboldt penguins, because they're adorable and it's just so much fun to see. But we'll get very close up the sea lions right there. Again, for photographers, this is such an opportunity. It's like, you were talking about the Galapagos Islands. Really, this is sort of like a mini version of one of those islands anyways. So we're going to be going on speedboats out to these islands and then circumnavigating and then coming back. And it's a really great opportunity for you to see this wildlife up close. It's really magical. I love it there.
So we get a little bit of marine wildlife mixed in with the desert. In the afternoon, we'll drive back to Lima and spend a night before we hop on a plane and head to Cusco. So that will be the first leg of our trip, which will be desert and the Nazca lines and the Baestas Islands. We'll then head up to Cusco. So we'll head into the Andes, flying from basically sea level all the way up to Cusco. The good news is, though, because I know a lot of people have heard about this, one of the concerns about Peru is, of course, altitude. Cusco sits at almost 3,500 meters or 11,000 feet above sea level, but we're not staying there. We always plan it this way. We're going to head from there. We'll land in Cusco and head straight down into the Sacred Valley, into Pisac, which is a few thousand feet lower. So this just helps with the acclimatization before we then spend the last few days in Cusco after we visit the Sacred Valley in Machu Picchu, right?
That's right. In fact, 11,000 feet is Cusco, and then we're going about 4,000 into 3,000 to 4,000 feet in the Sacred Valley, where you can acclimatize very well. We're going to take it very slow once we get in there. There's no major concerns to have. Like in general, people are totally fine with all of this. We're not climbing up mountains or going up, even Cerro de la Muerte areas that are really, really high. But when we get into Pisac, which I love, it's one of my favorite towns. It's basically like the introduction to the Inca civilization. Now we're really going to get into history here. We're going to be seeing one of these ruins, walking through it for those who want. Others can even sit and just enjoy, because again, you will be adjusting, so we don't want to overdo it. Right below Pisac is the village. So you'll get more history on what it was, but it sits right over a village. And in that village is some of the best shopping. If someone likes shopping, we have really great stuff and some very authentic purchases, not the kind of stuff that comes from China. This is actually made by the local Peruvians, and they come down and they sell their things in this village. So it's going to be very interesting for those who do enjoy kind of going through markets, even taking photographs. It's beautiful.
There are a couple of places. I think that's a good point, and not that I push shopping, because I know that some of the women like it and some of the men don't like it so much, and we have always this thing. But I never buy souvenirs. But in Peru, there's some incredible things that are part of the collection that I have in my home, and I really found it to be quite remarkable. There's some really incredible things. Anyway, the next day, we're in the Sacred Valley now. Exploring, and you can imagine this valley with these steep mountains on either side that go up to the plateau where Cusco sits on. The scenery, the pictures hardly even do it justice. What are we going to see in Maras and Moray on this day?
This is one of my favorite days. So you're really going to see sort of the landscape of the Sacred Valley, which spans about 80 kilometers. And we're going to be going to see Maras and Moray. This is Moray. It kind of looks like a spaceship came down and left these impressions. And then, they just built in them. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there. But it's really great. These are actually terraces for experiments on how they're going to be growing different seeds at different levels, different altitudes. Anyways, it's so gorgeous. We walk around that with the view of the Andes in the back. And after that, we're actually going to go have a lunch in a very special place. Actually, the chef studied with Gaston, who's one of the best chefs of Central. Remember, I was telling you about one of those restaurants? Yeah. She trained with him in France, and she owns this little beautiful house in the middle of this gorgeous environment. And we're going to have a special lunch there together. After, we're going to head to Maras. We're not going to show you a photo of that, but these are salt terraces. It's so beautiful, again, for photography. Cool. Yeah, super cool. And so it's just a really great, and again, everything we do, you can do it at a level that's really low energy, and you can do it at a high energy as well, because we can get you to hike a little bit more or less. So it's really great.
Exactly. So we'll spend one more night in the Sacred Valley, and we'll visit Ollantaytambo, which we'll return the next day, because that is actually the gateway into Machu Picchu. But Ollantaytambo, it's kind of like the buildup as we get towards Machu Picchu, which is the pinnacle of the, what's left of the Incan culture. But they have a really cool fortress here as well. You can kind of see it in the background of the picture.
Yeah, Ollantaytambo is another really great. It's for the resistance against the Spanish Inquisition and everything that was coming in, and all the Spanish dominance that was coming in there. So again, lovely markets. And if some of you like, again, if you want to push yourself a little bit, you see those stairs right there. We're gonna, some of you, you're seeing terraces, but there's stairs on the side of that. The view from the top is incredible, but also the view from the bottom. So you'll learn a lot about it. It's very, very interesting. And just to give you an idea, the Sacred Valley spans, I said, 80 kilometers. On one side is Cusco, and the other is Machu Picchu. So it kind of gives you sort of that idea that we're going to be going through that whole valley on the trip. You'll see a lot.
Exactly. So we'll have one more day, and then the following day, of course, is the highlight, because this is where we'll check out of our hotel in Urambaba, and then we'll head to Ollantaytambo, and then we take the train. And I know a lot of people aren't aware of this, but the only way to get to Machu Picchu is by train. It's a very narrow valley. There's no road in there. You'll wonder how they even found this place in the first place, and why the Spanish never made it, because I mean, you know, you just never find it. It's remarkable experience taking this this winding train trip into Aguascalientes, which is the town at the base of Machu Picchu. And then you arrive in this town, you think, where's Machu Picchu? And you still can't see it.
Nope. You gotta take a winding bus going up. Some of you might have like, you know, but it's very safe. So basically, Ollantaytambo, from when we leave from there, we take a 1.5 hour train with, you know, we'll be able to see the train has basically glass all around. You can see the scenery. It's such a beautiful ride there. You can actually kind of go through a bit of rainforest as well. For those of you who are not going to do necessarily the Amazon extension, you will get into this more like lush rainforest environment. We're actually going lower in elevation here than the Sacred Valley. Some people think it's higher, it's actually lower. So most people, when they get there, they're on fire. They're doing great. And we're going to give people time to really absorb this place. Like I said, I've been there many times, and every time I'm there, I'm just so in awe of what they've created, especially for the fact that there's no roads that lead there. So when you're in the site, we're actually going to do a guided tour of the site together. And that's just going to take us into sunset, which is some of the most beautiful times to take photographs. And also most of the groups are gone by then. That's what I love about going in the afternoon. But if some of you might feel like it's not enough time, even though most feel like we are going to give a certain amount of time there and it's just enough, in fact. But if some people are concerned, you can pre-book for the next morning. We'll be able to give you an optional chance to go back into the site and photograph. Just know that the site is not a free-for-all. There is a circuit that you have to follow. Imagine if you have so many guests, you want them to go in a flow. So it's not something that you can kind of go just anywhere, but it is something that if the next morning you want to go and take your time with your camera, for example, or, you know, even hire another guide on your own, you can do that if you want to get even more in-depth, you know, although our guide's going to give you a lot of great stuff.
And for those that are really active, as I was saying to Martine, and certainly we've done this before, there's a couple of other things that you can do. But what I think is most interesting is you can hike up to the Sun Gate. It's probably about a good, if you're, you know, in decent shape, about a 30-minute or so, 30 to 40-minute walk up.
I'd say 45 minutes, yeah.
45-minute walk up, steps, stone steps all the way, but you have, and you don't have to go all the way, but you have the most majestic view looking back, overlooking the whole of Machu Picchu. In fact, that's where most of the photographs come, are from along that pathway. And so for those that are really keen, but that being said, it's also cool to walk around the town of Aguascalientes, which is hot water, basically, and which sits in the valley below Machu Picchu, and enjoy the morning there. And then we'll hop back on the train and head back to Ollantaytambo in the afternoon.
That's right. There's lots of lovely markets there. There's even a hot springs, why they call it hot water. So yeah, it's a great place.
Exactly. So then we'll do one more overnight in the Sacred Valley. And then in the morning, we'll head back up to Cusco. So then we'll like go through the Sacred Valley and then up all these winding roads, and we'll be back up at Cusco. But by this time, we'll have spent a number of days, at least in the sort of 2,200 to 2,500 meters above sea level, sort of 8,000-9,000 feet before we jump up to Cusco. And you know, the magic number in terms of elevation is 10,000 feet. When you get above that, some people do notice that it's a little more challenging to walk, or you get a little more shortness of breath. You know, I took a trip to Peru the last time about 4 years ago, and we went actually much higher. None of our folks had any problems at all. So it's not something I would necessarily worry about, but we always say, if you're not sure, you know, check with your physician, see what they say. But I'm sure you'll be fine. In Cusco, it's worth it.
Yes, Cusco is considered a World Heritage Site. Their main square has been voted the second most beautiful in the world after one in Italy. It's just one of those gorgeous cities, all these cobble street roads, lots of beautiful shops, very inexpensive massages. We call them Inca massages in case you're interested. Some of the most incredible restaurants. In fact, we'll be doing pachapapa. For those of you who've never had cuy is that guinea pig. Some people will do it, some people won't. We won't judge if you don't, and we won't judge you if you do. Uh, but it's definitely like some of some of my favorite restaurants are in the city. So we're going to be exploring that, and you'll have a full day at leisure to go to the market. Again, if you're photographing or if you just want to see like the different produce that come out of the Andes and all of that, it's incredible. Even out of the rainforest as well. There's a whole section on rainforest, sort of Amazonian, products that come out of there. So it's really interesting. It's a beautiful.
And so Martine's going to be with you the whole time, and we'll point out some of there's some fascinating galleries. It really is one of those cities that's great to just wander around, because you can find something interesting on so many corners. It's really a cool place. And the next day we get to see Sexy Woman.
Yeah, that's how it's pronounced, Sexy Woman, but everyone says Sexy Woman. Sexy Woman is one of the it's my favorite site in all of the country. I've been to most of the sites in terms of Inca, history. This was the place when they have Inti Raymi. This is where they have the celebration where, the sun gods, all this stuff. It's just incredible. And so I don't know if you can really tell in this photo, but these are huge, huge rocks, and there's history. I mean, you can't even put a piece of paper between some of them. It's incredible. And we'll talk about that with the guide, and we'll get close to them. Like all those posts are, just a little bit lower than a person. So it gives you an idea if you can tell sizing, but it's just magnificent. It's like magnificent. I love it. And a lot of these were taken and brought into the city when the Spaniards came. They broke it down and took a lot of this to make what we know today as Cusco. So it's very interesting.
Exactly. And it'll be really a great way to sort of cap off our adventure and our learning through the Incan culture by seeing Sexy Woman, and we'll have a lovely farewell dinner on the final night. And then you will have seen, for those that aren't going to partake in the extension, we're going to talk about really the highlights of Peru. That's what this trip is all designed to do. And then for those that want to see sort of the third of the geological features of the country, the rainforest. And we put this as an extension for the reason because the last time I ran this trip, we had a number of people that, they went because they wanted to see Peru. They weren't really they were a little bit afraid of the jungle and all the creatures that, will come out to get to you. None of them will come out and get to you. But it is a worthwhile add-on. I think the Amazon, it is really a wonder of this planet. And so basically we'll fly out of Cusco. Those who are just going to do that, the regular part of the trip, we'll head to Lima and then connect on a flight back to Canada or onward from there. Those that wish, we have set up this wonderful lodge, and it is the same one that I stayed in the last time I was with a group in Peru, Inca Terra Amazonica. We fly to Puerto Maldonado, which is about 45 minutes from Cusco. So it's a short little flight. And we go from a high up in an Andean plateau, and all of a sudden it's green. And we head to the bank of the river. This is a tributary of the Amazon River. And we take a short boat ride, and then we end up at this wonderful lodge in the middle of the jungle, where we spend 3 nights. And Joel will take us through a couple of the photos here. It's like a little oasis of paradise, of comfort, obviously all screened in. They don't have air conditioning, but what's remarkable about the Amazon, people are like, oh my God, there's no air conditioning, but it gets cool at night. I mean, not like 15 degrees, but certainly cool enough to sleep comfortably. Everything is screened in, so you're all protected and cozy in your wonderful little room. And while you're there, there's all kinds of excursions. And what's your favorite thing on the Amazon to see? I mean, of all the different things that you can do.
Well, I personally love to see the scarlet macaws, the clay lick, but that's further in. We'll talk about that perhaps as well. But just going on these bridges and going into these, canoe kind of expeditions where you can go see, and you can even go fish for, you can go fish, you can go see, sometimes you'll see monkeys. One thing about the Amazon I like to tell people is it's quite expansive. So seeing wildlife, your expectations need to be checked in terms of like, sometimes it's harder to see because it's so big and the animals have so much places to go that it's not concentrated necessarily. The deeper you go in the forest, the more chances you get to see maybe larger wildlife, for example. But if you want to just be surrounded by, beautiful birds and perhaps even monkeys in this case, and just the lushness, I mean, it's definitely worth trying and seeing. Everyone has to experience the Amazon at least once in their life, I say.
I think so too, and my experience of it is that sometimes the best wildlife you see is on the night hikes,
Yes.
where they take you out at night with a flashlight. I can tell you, it scares the heck out of a lot of people to be walking in the jungle at night, myself included, because then they always tell you stories about all the big snakes that live there and all the rest of it. I never saw any of them.
If it makes you feel better, I live in the jungle most of the year in Costa Rica, and I got to tell you, the animals have no interest in you. They're if anything, snakes do. They just want to get away. So you're good. You're good.
Exactly. So, as I say, 3 amazing days on in the or adjacent to the Tambopata Reserve, which is of course part of the Amazon rainforest, and all of the excursions are included in the program, so you can really choose from a number of different ones that they have on offer there. And it's a great place. And actually, there's one other thing I wanted to mention about this, and I always have to be careful what I say because a lot of people, we get asked about, what medication do I need to take for the Amazon, because of course it's in general considered a malaria area. And this is certainly not advice, and I emphasize that because you should always consult with your own physician. But, of course, half the people in the group were there with their malaria prophylactics. They were taking their mefloquine or their chloroquine or the different things against. And of course, these medications make you feel quite ill. The side effects are not exactly pleasant. And then a number of our members were ill. And then, the general manager of the hotel came out. She said, so you're all feeling sick, eh? She said, you're taking malaria medication? She said, we haven't had a malaria case here in 10 years.
Exactly.
So anyway, my point is that you should inquire and make your own judgment as far as that's concerned. But all I can tell you is that everybody stopped taking their malaria medication, felt fabulous afterwards, and we didn't have any cases of malaria. But that's another nice thing about this part of the Amazon is that you're not in danger of catching some. I shouldn't say you're not in danger, but the likelihood of catching a tropical disease is relatively small.
That's right. And if I'm just going to add, if someone's concerned about the yellow fever, for example, it's only if you're going to be going from here to another tropical country that you may be required. Right. But if you're going back to Canada, they don't require you to have the because they wouldn't survive here even if it tried, So in general, I would just say wear some bug spray, wear long pants, just try to cover yourself from insects. But in general, like there's a lot of birds, bats, and lizards taking care of them. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of medication myself when it comes to that, but do consult.
Yeah. And that'll be that'll wrap up our trip. So from Puerto Maldonado, we fly back to Lima, and then of course we'll catch a connecting flight onward back to Canada, or perhaps to the Galapagos. We'll have to see about that. Let me give you an overview of some of the logistics, Martine. I appreciate you giving us really some highlights. It's been brilliant, and I know that you're passionate and you love this country so much. So of course, all the details are available in your brochure, so I'm not going to go through everything in a great amount of detail, but you can see the price of this program here, starting at $47.80 based on double occupancy, and you can see that the single price is actually quite reasonable. I know we have a lot of solo travelers, so I think this is a good one without having to pay a big single supplement. And at the bottom there, the add-on for those extra days in the Amazon rainforest. As far as inclusions are concerned, as with most of our programs, you're covered on most fronts. We generally have breakfast and either lunch or dinner each day, which is what most of our members find is ample. Usually a light snack is sufficient for the rest. And yeah, all of the rest of the transportation and guiding and the wonderful services of Martine, who seems to have disappeared, are part of the program. The only extras are the Nazca Lines flights, which is about $400. And if you're adventurous, it's worth doing. Yeah, talk to us about that, because it is a bit of a rough ride. It's a bit of a roller coaster. And if you want to go up to Machu Picchu for a second time as well, it is recommended to book in advance, because they do have admission control on that. So, yeah, apart from that, the extension program will not be hosted, but you are well looked after by our friends at Inca Terra. I can say that. So that part would be on your own, and you're pretty much all inclusive there. They give you 3 meals a day, lovely food at this lodge. It's a great spot. So there's not much extra to do there, because there's not really any shops in the Amazon rainforest. As far as the airfare is concerned, of course, we are still in this period of uncertainty with COVID and all, but I'm optimistic that Air Canada will return their flights from Toronto to Lima. But just checking recently, the flights are still consistent with before the pandemic, around $900 to $1,200 from most of the major cities in Canada. And it will be a lot easier, certainly, to fly via Toronto than having to go through the States, but we'll see that. So let's see what else. We're about to do Q&A, so if you do have questions, and I see all of the questions here, so Martine will help me answer some of those. But otherwise, please do drop us an email, give us a call. Always welcome to hear from you, and to answer any specific questions that you have if you're interested in the program. So let me address some of them, because I see quite a few have come in. Georgia asked about seeing the Nazca lines and the National Reserve. Yes, so the Nazca lines program will be in the morning. We'll leave the hotel relatively early, and we'll be back by lunch. It's only about an hour and a half total, about 2 hours, I guess, total flight time, give or take. But the airport is a close distance away, and we'll be back midday, have lunch, and then head off on our tour through Paracas Reserve. So you won't miss anything by going to the Nazca lines. Temperature in June in Peru. What's the temperature this time of the year? This is a perfect time of the year to go. Oh, you're on mute.
Mute myself. Pardon me, everyone. So you definitely want to bring layers. I always tell people dress like an onion, so in layers. So you want to be. I recommend only pants. Honestly, some people bring shorts and stuff because they think we'll be in the first part, the dry arid, which can get pretty warm during the day. But still having pants for the sand and all that, it just helps. So I would say keep your shorts at home unless you're a shorts person, and then just bring sure you have layers. And definitely you want something that cuts the wind and for rain, even though at that time of year there's very little rain. So we're in their dry season, which is their winter, whereas the summer it's very rainy, where you've heard of maybe even roads collapsing and things from rain.
And so the temperature in the first part of the trip on the coast.
Yeah, it can go on the coast. You're looking in the high, maybe mid 20s during the day, but it can go down as far as like 12, 13, 14 degrees. So it gets very cool at night, which is why having, and even when you get into the Andes during the day with the sun, it can get pretty warm, but then as soon as you get in the shade, it can get pretty cool. So you're looking again at about 15 degrees as a low probably at that time of year, but it can go lower at night. When you go into Cusco, we can sometimes get closer to 5 degrees. So you want to just bring, so you'll have sun all the time, most of the time, but it can get chilly. So you definitely want to bring layers. You can buy your hats and your mittens there in the markets, but
perfect. And another question: if it's winter, are there mosquitoes?
In the Andes, we have no mosquitoes. We're very lucky. We get, but when we get to Machu Picchu is a weird place. It has these little, I guess, biting midges. It has these tiny invisible like sand fleas, almost you can say. So that's why I tell people, even though it's going to be warm in Machu Picchu, it gets very, very warm when we're hiking. But you want to have like almost something like this, that covers your skin. You don't want to have exposed skin, or you want to put bug spray. And you'll see as we go towards Machu Picchu, they're selling bug spray everywhere, and there's a reason. But otherwise, in the desert and in the Andes, we won't have issues with that many bugs. Probably none.
Exactly. So Fran was asking or made a comment that she said she's been to Peru and enjoyed swimming in the Amazon, if that's an option on this trip. And I do believe that Inca Terra has one of the trips in the canoe or one of the boats where you can actually swim in the Amazon River. People are I find a little bit timid of that because they think they're going to get eaten by piranhas, but the piranhas actually aren't interested in people. They are in the river, but they don't. They, you know, and they say unless you have a cut on you. But so we'll make sure that if you want to go take a swim in the Amazon, that you are afforded that opportunity. I've done it myself. It is quite a lot of fun, I admit.
And there is a pool in the first hotel that we're going to. So if you do want to bring your bathing suit, you can. You won't be able to swim though in the Paracas Bay because there are actually a lot of limidusas, you know, like it has a lot of those, and then the name escapes me. Help me out. The
jellyfish. Yeah.
Jellyfish, thank you, which you don't want to be
No,
in there.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we just have another question about, yes, can single travelers be paired up with somebody else? Definitely, Georgia. We have a program we call Companions for the Road, and Paula will send you the information on that. So we have a bit of a unique approach to this because we don't just pair people up automatically. We let you fill in a little bit of an anonymous survey, and then we compare it to somebody else who has sort of similar travel habits, and then we exchange surveys anonymously, and then we ask you if from the description of that person's how they like to travel and some of their habits, we ask you if you want to meet that person, and if both people say yes, we introduce you, and then at that point you can decide if it's a suitable travel companion. So that's our Companions for the Road program, and that is definitely possible on any of our trips.
Gordon, can I just come back to the swimwear? I just want to make sure everyone also knows that in the Sacred Valley, there's also a beautiful jacuzzi situation. So I don't want you to leave your bathing suit at home and then say, oh, you never told me about the jacuzzi. So yes, there is a jacuzzi.
Okay. Thank you, Martine. And the Amazon River excursions there, the prices are in the brochure. So I'll send you that again. It starts at $1,400 for the 3 nights. Yeah, you can get all the details there, or certainly give us a call and get that. The flights are not included. We don't include flights in any of our programs, but we can certainly set those up for you because everybody tends to have a different preference about routing and airline and all the rest of that. So that's how we manage for flights. And yeah, Fran just made one more comment about the language challenges, about how difficult it was at times for someone who speaks English. And that's true. I mean, I think in the hotels and so on, the touristy places, they definitely will speak English, but the locals speak Spanish. It's a Spanish speaking country. Yeah. So, but it's important to know, I think it's important.
Yeah, and I'll be with everyone, and obviously well, no, obviously maybe you don't know that, but I speak Spanish. That is my 3rd language. My first is French, so if we have francophones as well, we can always switch to French. But we can do a few lessons too, and just maybe you can prepare a few little things so when you get there you understand, you know, sort of some of the basic language and asking, you know, directions and that kind of thing. It's always fun to learn, but I'll be with you and can support you with that. No hay ningún problema.
Fantastic. Good. Well, we will send a copy of the webinar with the replay to everybody who has participated and everybody who signed up for our webinar but wasn't able to join us today. And that is also posted on our YouTube channel. So if there's somebody else that you know that may be interested in coming on the trip, you can always refer them to us and they can see a copy of this and get all the wonderful information that Martine has provided with us today. And I appreciate your time for joining us next week. 2 weeks from now, we're taking a week off because we've done 13 of these in a row. So we're taking a week off next week from our webinars. We'll be back on June the 17th, talking about our newest 5x5 itinerary, that is Germany and the Benelux countries. A very interesting and unique program. So please do join us for that. Paula has put the link to that webinar in the chat box. So if you are interested in joining us, of course, the information will be in our newsletter coming out on Saturday again. Thank you again. Thank you, Martine, for giving us a lot of wonderful color about Peru. I'm sure we'll have a lot of people that will be thrilled to join you next June. And I look forward to catching up with everybody again in our next webinar in 2 weeks. And have yourselves a good day and keep crossing your fingers. We're almost at the end of the tunnel and we'll be traveling again soon, I promise you. Yeah. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.